Absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Sergeant Ethan Lawson, your 5-6 secretary. And on behalf of 5-6 Council, I'd just like to thank everyone for taking time to log in today for our Tier 2 assignment briefing. So for our briefing today, we have Sergeant Watkins, who's going to be covering training and marketing for us, Sergeant Runyon, who's going to be going over OA-HP recruiting, Sergeant Wyatt for our MEPS liaison briefing, and then Sergeant Stefan covering operations. All of our speakers today are very well versed in all their Tier 2 assignments. They got a lot of great information for you. So please make sure you soak up as much knowledge as you can, and make sure you have any questions you may have on standby for them. We'll be opening up for questions after each segment to make sure that we get everything answered for everyone that may be on their minds. And then that's all I got. So I believe we're starting off with Sergeant Watkins, so we can get the slideshow started if you're ready.
Yes, sir. This is Sergeant Watkins here. Appreciate the introduction here. So like he said, I'm training and marketing for the 341 here. So I've been in this seat for about a year. I got here last summer. So I've got a year worth of experience in this seat and, just kind of what the whole gig entails. So you can go ahead and flip the slide, please. So I figured that I could kind of talk about why I decided to remain with AFRS. I was AMO before I took the Tier 2, came into the recruiting gig. And then just talk about my day-to-day, kind of what I do in this seat, and then how it compares to the Tier 1 assignment. Next slide. So first and foremost, in the marketing and training area is a new opportunity, as with like all of the Tier 2 assignments that you're going to get. Obviously, didn't go back to my regular career field. I felt like I really enjoyed recruiting, and one of the biggest aspects, the things that I liked the most of being an NCO was to be able to mentor young, like my airmen and stuff. In this seat, with being marketing and training, I absolutely have that ability to help and train and mentor some of the younger recruiters out there when they're first getting to the new assignment. So that was a really big factor for me. And that kind of addresses the personal and professional development. I know it's really hard to get promoted as a Tier 1. You don't have a whole lot. You don't have the depth of leadership that you would as a tech sergeant. Back in your regular career field. When I was AMO, I was an assistant shop chief, and I had about 30 people that worked under me. Obviously, as a recruiter, that was not the case anymore. So being in this seat as a trainer and marketer, I get to have a lot more ability to professionally develop myself and others. So I think that right there was another big reason that I wanted to stay in and doing this. Once again, if you liked the people and the aspect of the sales portion of being on the bag and carrying the number and doing the sales game, this is definitely a good option in my opinion, due to the fact that once again you still get to mentor and you're still having a piece of the action without actually being on production. But the other piece that it gives you is the ability to network outside of the Air Force. There's a lot of different businesses that I deal with within the marketing realm. A lot of like media, TV, not TV, but like radio, newspaper, different chambers of commerce. So there's a lot of breadth of like knowledge and like just the networking that goes into this part of the job, I think. Next slide. Now, as far as the training goes, the day-to-day activities, biggest piece of training, just like any other career field, it's, you're meeting the deadlines. We got to make sure that the recruiters are trained, according to the handbook on Ricky and the SOPG within timelines, right? So not only do we have the timelines that we meet as far as getting out there doing the infield training, but we also guide and help the flight chiefs meet the same deadlines. MEPS, we make sure that everybody is scheduled properly to get the training that they need and not bust those deadlines, along with the documentation, right? So we also have to make sure that in AFRS, everything, the 623s, any kind of formal training, the infield training, all that stuff is documented within AFRS now. So we have a big part of that. Like I said, the infield training is something that we do. That's probably my favorite part of the job, if you can't tell, with being able to talk to different people and getting to hang out with the recruiters and stuff. And then I know that this is kind of, I don't know, it kind of gets a bad rap, I think, planning the semi-annual and the annual. Right now is a really big time for us, busy time, due to the annuals coming up. Being in marketing and training, we are the entity that plans the annual, right? So in conjunction with the top three and the commander and stuff, we bring it together. So if you ever go to these annuals and you're one of those people like, man, I really could have done this better, or I think that we should have done XYZ. Well, in this seat, this is where it kind of comes together, right? So if you have some good ideas and you want to be creative with it, definitely something that you can really get into. It can be stressful, not gonna lie, but at the end of the day, whenever you're at the annual, because I helped plan our last year, even though I was new. Whenever you get there and you see the recruiters having fun, they appreciate all the hard work that you put into the banquet and stuff. I think it kind of pays off, man. And I really enjoy seeing it come together. Same thing with the semi-annual. We do like rookie symposiums. Anybody that's struggling, we put those together as well. So you have a really big fingerprint in how your squadron does all the training and helping everybody that needs it. Same thing with marketing. You get to negotiate, schedule events. Recruiters will come to me, hey, I got XYZ event going on. I would like to participate. And basically, as the marketer portion of this, you are the person that makes it happen for them, right? So if you have a recruiter out there that's busting his hump and he finds something that he really wants to do, then you are the person that makes it happen and come to life for him. So the other piece of this, you get to create and work your marketing budget. So you, as a senior trainer, usually you're sitting down, usually this time of year, and you're making the entire budget for the marketing. What are we going to do? How are we going to spend it? What do we think we need help with? In conjunction with the flight chiefs and everybody kind of giving you feedback on what worked and what didn't work. So that kind of brings me to the last point here. Creativity can be fun, right? So basically what I mean by that is whenever you get the feedback and you have the ability to actually make the plan, you can kind of think outside the box, as long as you have a good thought process behind it, a reason that it might work. Usually the commander and your boss, the senior trainer, will, work with you and hopefully bring your ideas to life and you have a really big piece in it. So to me, all that stuff put together, I think it's really, it's been rewarding. Not quite as rewarding as it was when I was on the bag, helping people change their lives. But in this seat, there's a lot of things that you get to see. The light bulbs come on for new recruiters. You get to see a lot of different things for your squadron come to life that you didn't get to in the tier 1 space. Next slide. And so, it kind of brings me to how does it compare to when I was on the bag, right? So, obviously when you're on the bag, you're doing production, you're in that tat school, like, I got to get this done role, right? You are the doer. Obviously, whenever you are no longer in production, you're stepping back to a support role up at the headquarters, right? So the mentality changes a little bit. You go from changing those applicants' lives and making things happen for them to assisting the recruiters and making things happen for them, right? So I still remember when I first came on the bag and, you're drowning out there in your first year and you're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes trying to make things happen. I still remember that, right? So when I have new recruiters out there and they're asking me for help or we're trying to do the infield training, man, it really pushes me to want to give them every piece of information I wish I had. So I think that's a big thing for me. And then once again, all this kind of ties together, the involvement with the development of new recruiters. Even after you do the infield training, I have questions all the time. You build a rapport with your guys, with the guys out there in the bag, even the flight chiefs sometimes. If you have good ideas and you're willing to share them, people will come to you. And then, you're able to tell them, hey, this worked for me, this didn't work, or, give them different ideas throughout the time that you're trying to help them out. And then once again, I just keep hitting the same things here, but the opportunity to mentor, I cannot stress this enough. Whenever I was, I think when I first took this position, came into tier 2 or whatnot, My favorite thing to do is, tell other people, hey, it's going to be all right, especially when they get there and they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed right out of tech school. And you're telling them stories, they put you up on the pedestal, they're like, hey, I can look up to somebody, he knows what he's talking about. If you give them that kind of confidence, and you can really help guide them and make sure that they're going to be successful. So that's something I really enjoy. So and then the last piece of this, right, you have a really big impact on everything from like AFRS to the group to squadron down to the flight level. I know that I've done events, or I've organized events in this position. I reached out to Det 1. We had a big HBCU event, historically Black colleges and universities event down here in Houston, and the Army had a sponsorship with these guys. Spent like $50,000 on this massive asset, and we couldn't let them have all the fun. So I reached out to Det 1, and I reached out to the Special Warfare Squadron, and we came together and we pooled our money basically, and helped fund us our own booth. And we had a special speaker come out from the Pentagon, and Chief Mosley out there came and spoke for us, and it was really cool. So you get to kind of play the major league, I guess, with the other above your squadron, and have a really big impact on those things, depending on what you're involved in. And just basically it comes down to like how, what do you want to do, right? And it can kind of get as big as you'd like it to get. Next slide. So just to kind of wrap it up, we talked about my decision to remain in AFRS, what I do on the day-to-day, and how it compared, in my mind, how it compared to my Tier 1 assignment. So does anybody have any questions about what I do, or what I talked about?
So how often do you go, TDY for training and things like that?
So we have, so it's a 3-man shop, right? So it's me, my office partner, and then the senior trainer. So me and my office partner, we kind of rotate. So if he goes TDY back to back for different infield trainings while I'm taking care of some marketing events, then we'll switch off. But once again, outside of the infield training aspect of it, it's kind of up to you, right? So I know that me and my wife, kind of like whenever I was in the bag, me and my wife, we did like all of our, if I ever had any events, she was out there with me. So I still take her, and we go out there and we support the recruiters. But a lot of the events are up to me, right? Obviously, we have to go out there and make face and help the recruiters when they need it. But without the infield training, because the infield training is kind of set in stone, a little bit more than what you do as a on the bag recruiter. But I'd say, man, it's kind of hard to say, because you got your busy season and whatnot. But it's really up to you. I mean, I don't want to put an emphasis, because every squadron is going to be different. But I think it's more up to you than what we get credit for. It's not like you're going to be gone every weekend. It's not that bad. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Well, if nobody else has any questions, I can put my email out there in the chat. If you guys think of anything later on, or you need some help or anything, please feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to give you some insight, or whatever you need.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sergeant Watkins. If nobody else has any questions for him, then we'll go ahead and move on to the OAHP officer sessions, health professions, and pass it off to Sergeant Runyon.
All right, I'm Sergeant Runyon. Can you get everybody hear me okay? All right, go ahead and hit me with the next slide. So I currently do OA/health professions recruiting out of New York City. I'm going to go over my background a little bit, and then cover the programs and go over how the offices are running currently under the new construct, and then locations where you can be stationed at. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is me. So I'm previously from air transportation. I came in 2009. First duty station was at Travis Air Force Base for about 5 years. I did 3 Afghan deployments out of there. I worked at the PAX terminal. I worked at a vehicle shop, taught classes, how to drive loaders, things like that. I put in a BOP to move over to Andrews over in Maryland. That's where my wife and I are from. So I did that for a few years. Very cool assignment. You get to work with the president, vice president, first lady, everybody like that, moving all their stuff around. It was fun, but you work crazy hours, so it was cool. And then I opted to go into recruiting. My flight chief came down one day, asked if anybody wanted to get DST'd, and I raised my hand. And I came into recruiting. First assignment was out in Upland, California, right outside of LA County, over in Los Angeles. And I had a great tour, to be honest. It was a great market. There's a ton of people that live there. It's not difficult to do enlisted recruiting out of there. I had a lot of fun, so it was really cool. And then I opted to go tier 2. And at the time when I did my assignments, all the HP/officer accessions assignments were priority. So I put New York at maybe number 4, and I got it. And we were very excited, very nervous. It's a very different lifestyle. As you can see, I have 3 kids, which makes moving to New York City kind of difficult. It was a big challenge, but it's been really cool. We've had a great time. We've been here for about a year. As you can see, kind of my decisions, I started out in the Air Force, crazy busy, never home, always on deployments. And kind of every decision I've made is to support my family. Like, how am I going to be around for my kids more frequently? How am I not going to be on my 4th, 5th deployment in the future and able to just be here for the day-to-day to take care of them? And recruiting has really given me that. That's really why I love it. I love working with people. I love seeing people getting to start on their Air Force journey. So I enjoyed what I do. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so for the officer programs, in the past, how it used to work was you would have recruiters that would cover different programs. So you might have one recruiter that was assigned to Nurse Corps and one recruiter that's assigned to Medical Corps. How it works now is you're in an office with a team, and there's somebody on the front end. That's me in my office. I'm on OTA. Basically, I handle all the initial contacts, and I'm like a headhunter. I'm out in the streets, I'm out of the schools, I'm looking for people to fill these programs. So there's different boards throughout the year for all these programs. So as you shift through the boards, that's where your focus shifts. So let's say we have a board for pharmacists coming up. So we're out there looking for pharmacists, looking for those fills for those programs. The main focus, honestly, even though we cover all the programs, rated, non-rated, Space Force, the main focus really is all of those health professions boards. That's kind of where the largest amount of opportunities are. And that's also going to be kind of the hardest to fill, that you actually have to go out there and look for them. We do a ton of scholarships, the HPSPs, Health Profession Scholarships Program, for the Medical Corps, for Dental Corps. We are constantly looking for those. We're going out to medical schools. We're giving briefings to new students. It's honestly a great program. I had never heard about it previously. When I was in California doing recruiting, I actually ran into a doctor at an urgent care just in the middle of nowhere. And he said, oh yeah, the Air Force paid for me to go to medical school. And that was the first time I had ever even heard of that. I didn't know this was even like a real program out here, but basically it pays for them to go to 4 years of medical school. It pays for them to go through residency. And then they come back in as an active duty physician. It's a year for year payback. It's honestly a great deal, but that's kind of the main focus for us, is these programs, and it shifts throughout the year based on what we're focusing on. But it's really cool to go out there and actually be able to kind of look deep into these programs and figure out, like, what does it take to be a doctor or a physical therapist or a clinical psychologist or things like that. I would say it's, on the enlisted recruiting side, it's kind of, you have a kind of like a baseline knowledge of what different career fields do that you've interacted with. But on the officer side, it's a lot of studying. Even, you know, like, I've been doing this for a year. Even now, I still have to, when I'm looking at a dentist, pull out the regulations, see specifically what accreditations do they need, what certifications do they need? And there's a lot that goes into it to figuring out to make sure that these are the right people that we're hiring to put up to the boards. All right, go ahead, next slide. All right, so this is, I don't know if anybody's heard about the new construct. This is how the new construct works. On the front end, you have officer talent acquisitions. That's where I work. That's the person going out to schools and events, doing the initial appointments, doing all the initial lead refinement process. So in our office, we have about 6 recruiters. We have somebody up in Syracuse, upstate New York as well. So he's on OTA. So our day-to-day is just going through leads, reviewing applications, setting up appointments, knocking out initial appointments. And once everything's done on the front end, then we shift them over to OCC, the Officer Candidate Coordinator. So they are the ones that are actually building the applications. They're scheduling them for testing for the AFOQT, for the TBAS. They're scheduling the physicals at MEPS, and they're responsible for any waivers, anything like that. And they're responsible for submitting the actual application to the board when it's happening. And on the back end, you have the Airman Advancement Coordinator. Think of this as like your debt management. This is for after these officer applicants have been selected at the board. This is the time period between after their selection to when they would actually go to OTS. So whoever's on AAC is doing their commissioning documents and all the post-selection processes, helping them get uniforms, everything like that. This is definitely foreign, I guess, to enlisted recruiting. On the enlisted recruiting, you handle the entire process. On this, it's, I know there's a lot of conflicting opinions out there. I honestly kind of like this. If you're on one of these cells and you go on leave, it's honestly a lot easier to leave work at work. It's not as stressful. Even though you're on leave, I know you have people scheduled at MEPS and you're wondering, oh, what's going to happen during their physical, or what's going to happen during shift day, or things like that. In this environment, you have other people that you work with that are there, that are also familiar with the process and can tap into your bucket. And I think it just makes things a lot simpler. Next slide. All right, and these are all the locations you can be stationed at. So there's a lot less locations versus enlisted recruiting. Enlisted recruiting is, there's a lot of locations out there, but these are the main ones out there. Most of these are hubs. So I don't know about you or where you're stationed at, but when I did enlisted recruiting, I was in an office with one other person. I had a year-long gap too, where nobody was there. I was just by myself. But I know there's other people out there that work in hubs. For officer recruiting, it's primarily working in hubs, working in teams on this construct in the different cells. Like I said, we still have our Syracuse office. We have one person up there right now. It's billeted for 2, but that is not the norm. But there's a lot of locations you can be stationed at. Yeah, next slide. Any questions? All right, I'll drop my email in the chat as well. If you guys ever want to talk or have any questions about officer recruiting or anything like that, you can always hit me up. But otherwise, thanks for dialing in.
All right, Sergeant White, if you're ready for the MEPS liaison brief, you can go ahead and get started if you're ready.
Yes, sir. I'm Tech Sergeant White. I'm going to be briefing you guys today about my experience at MEPS. You're going to hit me with the next slide. All right, so we're just going to talk a little bit about my background, me as a MEPS liaison, and some of the locations that you can be stationed at. Next slide. So like I said, I'm Tech Sergeant Randy White. I'm originally from Jamaica. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. I joined straight out of high school. I've been in around 13 years now. My first job was supply. I didn't really do it that long. So the way I became a recruiter is pretty unorthodox. Basically, I wasn't a US citizen when I joined, and the Air Force offered me an opportunity to stay in the Air Force, and recruiting had the loudest voice. So they allowed me to stay, which I'm extremely thankful for. My first duty station was at Warner Robins Air Force Base. And then I went straight into recruiting as a senior airman. My first location was in Kalamazoo. That was quite the culture shock for me. I'd never seen snow before then. So yeah, I literally went in the middle of a polar vortex. So anytime I hear tier 1 recruiter tell me that the assignment is hard, it's going to be tough, trust me, if I can make it through that, you can make it through it. After that, the Air Force gods blessed me with my assignment to Tampa MEPS. And then after that, I went to the 318th Recruiting Squadron. I'm actually Sergeant Runyon's office partner. So yeah, next slide. So yeah, the mission of MEPS, I'm pretty sure you guys are fully aware of it. They are the unsung heroes of the squadron. They make things happen. They make sure that these applicants can get in. But the official PC definition is to make sure that applicants are physically qualified, both morally, academically, pertaining to whichever branch they're trying to join. MEPS are managed by the Army. So you can already imagine what kind of red tape that we are not used to that they put up for us. But a lot of working at MEPS is leveraging those relationships and making sure that, you know, when they see you as somebody who's professional, who can handle their business, and make sure that you can get things done within that red tape. We don't call the shots, we don't run the show there. So you really have to get to know each branch and how they operate. It's typically staffed primarily by the leadership. The top part of leadership is for the enlisted is typically Army, and then the commander is always Navy. So understanding their lingo and jargon is extremely important. One of the most jarring things that you will experience working at MEPS is the civilian personnel. They are the backbone. They typically are the ones that are going to teach you about what it is to work at MEPS. A lot of them have been there for 10, 13 years. So it's really important for you to make sure that you are, how do I put this? There are a lot, and most of the time they're like in their 60s. So you're going to put up with a lot of boomer activity while you're working there. But moving right along, I'm going to be painting my experience in broad strokes because honestly, depending on what the size of your MEPS is, the manning, that will dictate what will happen while you're working at MEPS. Just a little bit about the Air Force Liaison Office. When I worked at MEPS, there was initially only 3 of us. That caused a lot of stress because I did work at a large MEPS. The MEPS they're usually a large, a small, and there's not that many medium MEPS anymore. Majority of them are either a large or a small MEPS. When I worked there was only 3 of us, so that required us to work some pretty long hours, like 12 hours minimum. There's usually an opener, a closer, and the MLS. The opener typically gets in around 4:30 in the morning and is out of the office by, after you're well trained, probably around 9:30, 10 o'clock, depending on how the day is going. On a shipper day though, those days can take you to about 1 o'clock. If you're a closer, you typically come in around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then you stay like the title says, you're going to stay there till close. Make sure all the applicants are off the floor. Typically, you're the one who's going to deal with all the craziness throughout the day. If they come back from medical with, all of a sudden they didn't realize they were pregnant or they smoked weed, you're the person that's going to primarily deal with that. It's in the title of the name, you are the liaison. So unfortunately, anything goes wrong, typically the recruiter blames you, but you get an in-depth look at what it takes to get us in, to get us in and to get these applicants in. Testing is going to be probably the hardest part of the process. Their offices only open from 6 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's typically a civilian who hangs out and does the ASVAB or AFOQT, depending on how long the day is. They're going to be the hardest one to deal with. I'm not going to lie to you. Medical will be hard as well. They are still using paperwork back there. So if you ever run into an issue with medical as to what's going on with the CMO, what's going on with your med reads, the reason being is because they are kind of archaic with their process. With ops, that's where you get a lot of your recruiter improprieties. That's why I'm saying leverage those relationships with your liaisons, or not the liaisons, with the offices while you're working at MEPS. You can change the day and change the course just because they like you. So make sure you're good with them. With travel, that's the fun part. That is the end of the road. So for example, I have put in over 3,000, literally, I have had a hand in over 3,000 people joining the Air Force. That feeling of when you get to sign off on that paperwork saying, yeah, this person's good to go to ship, and you got to see that you started it from when they came there to take their test to now that they're leaving for basic training is a feeling that's undescribable. MEPS is an awesome job. Like I said, you are the unsung hero. It is important for you to make sure that you leverage those relationships while you're there, but you also get to do some of the fun things with the recruiters that are in the field. For example, in the previous picture that I had up, I got to go to a lot of the Tampa Bay Bucks games. I didn't really have to do anything. We marched them out on the field, and after that, we got to hang out with the players afterwards. So that was pretty cool. You also get to do any of the other branches, like fun things. We got to go on a lot of cool trips with the Navy. So definitely an assignment that I really loved and enjoyed. Next slide. And so, yeah, the locations are broken down by divisions. My advice to you is if you are interested in doing MEPS, when it's time to do your MOI or you're picking your locations, just call ahead, figure out what, like I said, what type of MEPS it is. Is it a large MEPS? Is it a small MEPS? And what's manning like? If you're a person who loves to work hard, doesn't mind staying a little longer, hit up a large MEPS. But if you're somebody who would like a nice, easy schedule, definitely hit up a small MEPS. For the most part, they process, I don't know, 10 people a week versus what I was dealing with, anywhere between 50 to 100 people a week. And that's it. Any questions? All right, I'll drop my email in the bottom. Thank you, guys.
All right, well, our final brief today is operations with Sergeant Massey. I apologize for prior butchering your name, but if you're ready, you can go ahead and get started.
No worries, man. So yeah, I'm Sergeant Massey. I'm in operations here in the 341st in San Antonio, Texas. I've been in recruiting since August of 2016, and this is my first Tier 2 assignment. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So just a few things I'm going to cover is my day-to-day responsibilities in ops, how this can set you up for career progression if you want to stay in recruiting after this, like to go to Tier 3 or whatever you choose to do. And then I'll answer any questions at the end. Go ahead. All right, so day-to-day responsibilities. Basically at ops, we take care of any workflows that you at the recruiter level, at the Tier 1 level, that you start. So credit checks, any waivers you push to your flight chiefs that come to us, clearing suspenses, pushing that courtesy ship paperwork, completing the reassignments for applicants that move from recruiter to recruiter for whatever reason, and DEP discharges. So, sometimes we are the pain in everybody's butt at Tier 1 because we're the people who kick the waivers back 5 or 6 times if we find something wrong with it. I promise we don't do it on purpose. We always try to find everything wrong with the waiver up front and kick it back just one time. But, at the end of the day, we're not going to put our names on like a messed up product to send to the commander. So we're going to have to kick it back. So I'm also responsible for all the goaling, the squadron goaling here in the 341st. So, when quarterly goals drop down from group to squadron level, I'm responsible for figuring out what every flight's goal for the quarter is going to be, which is pretty awesome because I like that. I like that detail work, and I like being the one who really gets in the weeds with that. Lastly, we do the job bookings. So, you put something on an applicant's preferences list, we're going to QC that against TTMS and all the prerequisites. And then we're going to go ahead and book that job for them. And we're going to take care of any cancellations on the back end that you may have for whatever reason, and getting those jobs rebooked. Go ahead to the next one. So this is what I really wanted to touch on the most. So career progression for Tier 3, being in my position now for a little over 2 years, I have learned so much about the inner workings of recruiting as a whole. And it's really built my knowledge base to make me feel more effective for when I move into that next role. So this move into a supporting role instead of a supported role. As a tier 1 recruiter, you are in a supported role, which means everything you do, you are needing support from somebody else to get something done. So going back to the credit checks and the waivers and booking the jobs, you're putting in those requests and you're waiting for somebody else to do that for you. So in my position now, I'm in a supporting role where I'm able to help people get things done, which is what I really enjoy. In my position and moving through AFRS, you really start to get tasked with focusing on the next level, which means I'm tier 2 now, but I'm always tasked at thinking above my level. So when goal comes down, when it's time to book jobs, stuff like that, I have to focus on the squadron as a whole and getting the squadron across the line first before I can focus on individual flights, before I can focus on individual recruiters. So you're always having to look one level above where you're currently at. Next slide. Any questions for me? I know that was super brief, but honestly, I mean, you guys deal with ops on a daily basis. Like I said, when you're putting in any kind of workflow, any kind of notification to get something done, we're the ones taking care of it for you. Like everybody else did, I'll put my info, my email in the chat so you can hit me up if you have any questions. But in the end, ops was my number 1 tier 2 choice, and I'm really happy I got it. It's been great for me. So I encourage you to reach out if you have questions. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, that was our last briefer for today. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking time to log in today. I hope you gained some new knowledge from it and was able to take away something new from this. Before we sign off, I'd like to pass over to our president, Sergeant Keating, and he has some final words for you guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to make this quick, as I know in today's presentation, we weren't able to touch on all the different tier 2 assignments that are available throughout recruiting. So we are going to be hosting another tier 2 assignments briefing where we're going to be talking about our special warfare tier 2 assignment, overseas assignments. We're also going to talk about Air Force headquarters positions. And then finally, we're going to work on a new assignment that's coming out, which is going to be the AFRS 2.0 development team. So stay tuned for a date on that. We are looking in just a couple of weeks to have that one launched. I'm hoping for before mid-October, because I know that assignment list is coming out soon. Outside of that, and Det 1, I forgot about them. Outside of that, I really like the MEPS, the ops, OAHP, training marketing. So I'll give one shout out for any questions out there before we go ahead and end the brief. Okay, that looks like that was it. Well, if you guys have anything, you're more than welcome to hit us up offline. Shoot us an email if you're looking to volunteer, and we'll get in touch with you. Thanks.